Totally. So this is great. Now we're getting back to the three most important aspects that determine the success of operationalizing and deploying ML: velocity, validation, and versioning. You make it very clear that I'm going to actually quote you. High velocity means creating many versions. In other words, having high velocity means drowning in a sea of versions of experiments, right? So I'm envisaging there some Pareto front where there's a tension and trade-off between velocity and versioning. But then you also mentioned there are synergies between velocity and validating early. So if ideas can be invalidated in earlier stages of deployment, and overall velocity is increased. One more thing you mentioned is creating similar development and production environments exposes a tension between velocity and validating. So the development cycles are more experimental, move faster than production cycles. However, if the development environment is significantly different from prod, it's hard to validate ideas early. So we have this there's some sort of Pareto triangle with synergies as well. So I've mentioned a few, but can you just speak a bit more to the relationships and correlations and causations between these three incredibly important things?
Yeah. I mean, the paper, you probably listed like most of them in the paper. Those were kind of the ones that stood out to us: mismatch between dev and prod. I think the nice anecdote there is on Jupyter Notebooks. For a long time, we had all been seeing each other. Some people so excited about Jupyter Notebooks. Some people absolutely hate Jupyter Notebooks. Everybody has strong opinions. Everybody wants to give a monologue on their opinions on Jupyter Notebooks. And I think for me, it's been like so many years of hearing this kind of over and over again, why people love it or hate it. And I wanted to know why it was so polarizing. And it was very satisfying to me to hear this, or to kind of frame it as this kind of, where do people lie on the velocity and validating spectrum? Some people want to move fast and break things in the Facebook speak, and they're okay with that if they can fix it. Some people do not want to move fast. They want to make sure that there's no buggy models. They want to make sure that everybody can review each other's work. Yes, that hinders velocity. And kind of like, it's really hard, right? Some people want Jupyter Notebooks because they can go fast. Some people don't want data scientists to go too fast, because then maybe certain scientific principles are disregarded. Maybe things are irreproducible. I don't really know, but it was nice to frame it this way, because there's no right answer, right? It's like, where do you personally lie on the spectrum? And when you run a company or you run your team, like, what is the ethos that you want to create? Or like, where do you guys want to lie?
Amazing.
That was interesting to me.
This is incredibly useful. I mean, this framework. So what I'm hearing is, in this framework of velocity, validation, and versioning, we can look at people who prefer Jupyter Notebooks, and in this framework, they're essentially prioritizing velocity. Whereas people who are strongly opinionated against Jupyter Notebooks are prioritizing validation and versioning, or mostly validation, or how do you think about that?
Mostly validation. I think of it as validation more, because it's like, how do you make sure the development and production environments are as similar as possible? Whenever there's a discrepancy, there is chance for bugs. So you can remove the need to validate a lot when promoting from dev to prod, if there is no real like environment change from dev to prod. One great example is, like, sometimes people will iterate locally and then deploy to the prod service in cloud. That is a huge environment mismatch. So you need to do some sort of big validation. I don't even know. I don't think people have solved this problem of like making sure there aren't bugs in this mismatch of environments. But again, right, like, why is it so separate? Like, it's completely different hardware, not even in the same like cloud. Crazy. I think this also exposed to me that, like, I am now feeling somewhat opinionated. It's not there's no correct opinion, right? It's like, what is the opinion you want to hold and you want to prescribe for the team that you are running?
Yeah, absolutely. And a question around notebooks, for example, is, if they don't have affordances which we'd like them to have, maybe as tool builders, we build them into them as well, right? It isn't yes or no, it's how do we want to build the future as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
as you point out.